Before we start this video, I have to tell you, this video came about by accident. For some reason, I started to realize that the color blue just naturally calls to me, even though it's not my favorite color. My favorite color is pink. And yet, for some reason, I have a lot of blue things, a lot of blue bags, a lot of blue clothing, and for the most part, a lot of blue books or book covers. And I don't know what it is that draws me to these colored books. For this week's video, I decided that I am going to read books that only have a blue color. I think I have a good variety of genre as well when it comes to these books that I want to read as well. Without further ado, let's get started with this video. The book I decided to choose to read first for this video is Till Summer Do Us Part by Megan Quinn. And honestly, I just really wanted a quick book to just get me started. And I also got the audiobook for this book. So far, I'm really liking it. I think I'm like 25% of the way through this book. It's about this woman named Scotty who pretty much works in New York, and she works for this like mini golf manufacturing company. And she's pretty much the only woman at this company other than like the CEO of the company. And so everyone in this company is happily married, and she's the only one that is divorced. She pretty much feels peer pressured by all of her coworkers to have like this seemingly perfect marriage and all of that. And so she pretty much lies to her coworkers and says that she is like a loving husband and all of that. She ends up recruiting her best friend's brother to become her fake husband and all of that. So there's like this fake dating plot. This situation escalates, and they end up having to go onto this marriage retreat with all of Scotty's coworkers. There's just a lot of, fake dating and chaos at this marriage retreat or this adult marriage camp. It's a really interesting concept. I like the characters and I like the banter and the dynamic between the main two characters. And so, yeah, I'm going to continue reading this book. I'm now like 50% of the way through this book. I think the narrators have done such a good job in bringing the characters to life, and also it's narrated in duet. The male narrator is Teddy Hamilton, and I feel like you can never go wrong with Teddy Hamilton. This book is just a really funny and quick kind of rom-com-esque book. I feel like Megan Quinn, she really does dive into very much like cheesy rom-coms and all of that, but for her I feel like it works, and she's not afraid to make dirty jokes and all of that, and make her characters go through these like insane experiences. Megan Quinn just does it in a way that she sort of does whatever the heck she wants in her books, and I honestly kind of have to respect it. I've only been reading it maybe like 2 or 3 chapters at a time. I'm thoroughly entertained like every single chapter that I read. And because I'm taking those breaks, I think, I'm having a much more enjoyable experience. If I read it all in one go, I probably would think that the more so like the sexual and like explicit and like dick jokes and all of that were a bit too much, but for the most part, it's been bearable for me. I can tolerate. I'll give a bit more of an in-depth review when I finish it, but I just wanted to give you a quick little update to what I think of this book so far. Last night, I ended up finishing Till Summer Do Us Part by Megan Quinn, and so I thought I would just come on here and give a quick little review of it. Overall, I gave this a 4.25 stars. I personally had a good time reading it, and I feel like it's because I read this in very small doses. So I only read maybe like a couple chapters a day. Breaking it up like that just made it a really lighthearted and enjoyable read. I really liked the characters and the plot and the romance in this book. I thought the situation that both of the characters was very interesting. I think the audiobook just elevated the banter and the a lot of the dialogue in this book, because I would say this book is very dialogue heavy. Like, it is really about these two characters really having a lot of, in a way, like, bickering like a married couple. I think the characters actually communicated with each other very well in this book. There were some moments in this book where the female main character kind of annoyed me just because she is definitely more of a people pleaser, and she also has a lot of, you know, trauma that she just didn't deal with a lot, and it showed. Same with like the male main character, but for him it's not really like that prevalent until later in the book and all that. If you are looking for a book or a rom-com that doesn't have a lot of spice, this is not the book for you. It got to the point where I just felt like it was too spicy. It did get to a point where I was like, okay, I think we need to dial it back because the sex is overpowering. It just got to the point where I feel like the plot kind of took a break and then it took us a while to get back on track. If you're looking for a summer read and you don't mind reading spice, then I think this is a really fun one to do. Overall, I really enjoyed reading this book. It was a really fun summer read. Now I am moving on to my next blue book. So the next book I decided to pick up is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I have been wanting to read this for quite a bit. I feel it's only been released for like 2 weeks, I think, at this point, and from what I've seen online of people's reactions to it, everyone has been crying reading this book. And so I am only 15% of the way in, and 15% is really just you getting introduced to the characters in this book. This is titled as a love story. And so I'm just really excited to just read this and read Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing. I'm also annotating it. I have my stickies. I literally have my stickies and all of that. And I have my highlighters and my pen. And for this book, I'm not really like annotating it in the way I normally annotate my books. Usually when I annotate my books, I have everything like different colored stickies and different colored pens categorized and all that and organized. Whereas for this one, because I didn't know what the primary themes of this book are, I really just kind of wanted to underline quotes and pieces of writing that really spoke to me. And so this one is being annotated a bit differently than my previous books, which I'm honestly okay with. And yeah, so I am actually going on a road trip tomorrow. So I am planning on just reading on the way to my destination and all that. We are going to continue on reading these blue books, and we're continuing on with Atmosphere. I'm coming at you guys from a little bit a different angle and environment. On the road trip here, I decided to continue reading Atmosphere and annotating it and all of that. And I'm one of those people who luckily has the ability to read in moving vehicles and everything without getting motion sickness and all of that. I am a bit more than 50% of the way into this book now. And okay, all over TikTok and social media, I have been seeing that like people have been crying reading this book. And at first I was like, okay, like they have to be exaggerating. But literally like 20% into this book, I was already on the verge of tears. And so I've dialed it back in. I haven't shed a tear yet. But with the way that this book is going, it really depends on how it ends. With where I am now, it's sort of gone into a different direction, that the pacing just feels a bit different than what I thought this book would sort of be going into when I first picked it up and all of that, because this book does jump around in time a lot. This one is definitely focused on like present present past, and like getting up to that point of, you know, where you were introduced to the point of the present of where the book introduces you when you first pick this up. And also, I'm filming this at like 11:30 at night, so if I'm not making any coherent sense whatsoever, that's on me. I'm really enjoying it. It is moving pretty quickly, and so I have, I think, about 100 pages left or so. So let's continue reading this book. I just finished reading Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I've sat on my thoughts for a couple minutes, and I'm going to share what I thought about this book. And overall, I rated this a 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. There were a lot of moments in this book that were just super impactful and literally got me to the verge of tears. I didn't end up like sobbing at the end of this book, but I did feel like my heart felt something. And that's really all that matters. And a lot of the books that I read and give 5 stars to are the ones that I just find the most impactful, that when I read them, I really feel something. For this book, I really like, I found a lot of quotes that I really resonated with. And this one really dives into womanhood. It dives into romance. It dives into a lot of different types of love, hence it, you know, the subtitle being a love story. And it really does focus on the idea of love. And I feel like with a lot of Taylor Jenkins Reid's previous books as well, a lot of the female or the main protagonists she writes about in a way are very unlikable, and unlikable in different reasons, in that they're just very edgy and a bit more, you know, self-centered, if that makes sense. Or, you know, they're very passionate about what they do, that they develop like a really big ego. I feel like a lot of the previous characters Taylor Jenkins Reid has written are very, you know, unlikable in that sense, but also like, but they're likable enough that you are invested in those stories and that you are invested in what she's writing. Whereas with this one, I would say the main protagonist is Joan Goodwin, and she's a very likable character. She's very smart, she's very empathetic. She really is just curious about the world around her and the people around her. And, she has a very insightful way of looking at the world, and she has a very unique perspective about the world. And, she is much more of an optimist compared to a lot of the previous characters that Taylor Jenkins Reid has written about. This one really focuses on the relationships between different characters and the love that blossoms between these different characters and the different types of love that people experience in their life. And I feel like, especially being a female and being a woman, you get to, I think there were points in this book that I related to a lot, specifically just being in my early to mid 20s and, discovering, you know, and those types of relationships and, figuring out your life as, someone who's just getting started in their career and all that, are, still trying to find themselves. I feel like there's a lot in this book that, I really resonated with. But I know if I read this, 10 years from now, there would be moments in this book that would probably resonate with me in that point in time in my life. And so I feel like if you're just a female, like, this is a book that is almost like a must read, because I think there's just so many lessons in this book that, really resonated with me. This book takes place really over like a 4-year time period. And so we sort of jump back and forth to a situation that is happening in present time, and then back to, before a lot of the characters are meeting for the first time and building these relationships together. And so how that impacts the current situation that they're in. And so I would say, like, I think the secondary characters, some of them are really strong and, have a very strong presence in this book, but there are others where it's like the emotional impact sort of doesn't hit as hard because you don't know as much about them. It's really about these different, relationships that these characters have, and, how they've grown from, when they first met and all of that. And so I personally really enjoyed Atmosphere, and yeah, I rated it 5 stars, just mostly for impact and for, it bringing me to like almost the verge of tears. I have a lot of thoughts about it still, but it's really hard to, pack up all those thoughts and explain it to people, especially people who haven't read this book before. I liked all the characters, I liked the romance, I liked, the sort of literary fiction aspect to it. And also, this book definitely deals with space a lot, and the science and all of that surrounding astronauts and astronomy and all of that. And so, also coming from now a job where I do have to talk about science, it made me see the world with such a different perspective. And, and science in a different perspective, if that makes sense. There are so many quotes in here that I have highlighted in all of that. One of my favorite quotes is, "Because the world had decided that to be soft was to be weak, even though in Joan's experience, being soft and flexible was always more durable than being hard and brittle. Admitting you were afraid always took more guts than pretending you weren't. Being willing to make a mistake got you further than ever trying. The world had decided that to be fallible was weak, but we are all fallible. The strong ones are the ones who accept it. Bravery, Joan suspected, is almost always a lie. Courage is all we have." Like, just things like that, like small sentences like that are just like something that just like feels so impactful when you're reading it. And like, there are so many moments in Atmosphere that it's like there's just a quote that I love and really resonates with me and makes me see the world in a different perspective. Like, there are some flaws, I would say. I do wish that the pacing was a bit better, because sometimes I feel like we were in moments a bit too long. And also, there were some moments that I really wanted it to be like fleshed out a bit more, if that makes sense. But overall, I really enjoyed this novel, and this is definitely going to be one that I will probably like reread in like maybe like 10 years and see how my perspective changes as I grow older and as I gain more experiences and all that. So, yeah, that is what I have to say about Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I just realized I never talked to you guys about what I've been reading recently. I just started The Lovely and the Lost by Jennifer Lynn Barnes yesterday, and I'm already about to complete it because I've just been reading it during this car trip, and so it's a really quick read. Jennifer Lynn Barnes sort of stays in the mystery genre of things. This one does not have a romance subplot, which I very much appreciate. And so sorry if you hear like this rumbling behind me. We just did a quick little pit stop, just like this small town, just to pick up some donuts because this town has a really good donuts. And people keep walking by while I'm doing this review. This book is about this girl named Kira who, when she was younger, was found like in the woods and all of that, and she ends up being adopted later on by like this family who, or this woman who pretty much trains like special dogs, specifically like canine units and all that. So those are like pretty much like police dogs, search and rescue dogs. They're the dogs that can sniff people out pretty much and have those specific traits, and they're used for like search and rescue missions and all that. Katie, the woman who adopted Kira, she is called back to her childhood home because a girl has gone missing and they need to use their canine dogs to sort of figure out what happened to her and all that. So it is very much this mystery type of book. And if you've read any of Jennifer Lynn Barnes's like previous books, then I feel like you would see a lot of similarities between like the naturals, even like some of the characters in this book are very similar to like inheritance games. And so I feel like Jennifer Lynn Barnes has like a very specific tone and voice when she writes, so that like no matter what book you pick up of hers, you know that it is hers, and she's a very distinct writing style. And so every time I pick up one of her books, I know I'm going to eat it up and enjoy it no matter what. I don't think this is a part of a series, but if it was part of a series, I would probably read it. I just love the uniqueness that like she has. Like I love how unique her ideas are when it comes to these books. Like this also is very much giving like the naturals, and if you are someone who, you know, loves dogs and is an animal lover, I feel like you would like this book. But there are some instances where it's just very sad. There are some sad things that happen in this book and some sad situations. So if you're planning to pick up this book, just be warned of that. But for the most part, I have been just eating this up, and I love all the characters. And you know, if this was a series, I probably would read it all, but I think this is just a standalone, so I think this is the only book in the series, unless I'm mistaken. Those are my thoughts on Lovely and the Lost, and I will update you guys probably when I'm back home to do a overall review of this book. I'm just gonna chill here and relax for a bit, and I'll update you probably when I'm back home. I have returned home from my quick little road trip, and on the way home, I ended up finishing The Lovely and the Lost by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and so I thought I would quickly come on here and talk about it and also just sort of wrap up this video. So I ended up giving this a 4.25 stars. I personally really enjoyed it, but I do feel like with Jennifer Lynn Barnes, most of the books that she writes are series, and so this is her first standalone novel, I think. And the standalone novel is set up almost like it should be a series. So I feel like everything that happened in this book, you know, it flowed well and all that, but at the same time, I feel like it wrapped up a bit too quickly. Especially the ending left a lot of room open for interpretation. And I feel like Jennifer Lynn Barnes does that in case she wants to, you know, revisit a lot of her series. And I feel like even with her duologies and all that, I always feel like after finishing those, I'm always left with a lot more questions and answers. And so for this book, I was definitely feeling it. Like, I feel like this book definitely isn't her strongest work because it is a standalone. Overall, I still connected with the characters a lot. I feel like for this one, I definitely saw a lot of crossover between characters from her previous series and this series, just the way with how they're written and sort of like the personality types. I feel like with Jennifer Lynn Barnes, with the amount of series she has, obviously there's going to be some overlap when it comes to personality traits and sort of the dynamics that appear in her books. And so reading this, it felt different enough from her other series that, it could stand alone and it had its own concept that worked really well. But at the same time, I feel like if you aren't a huge fan of Jennifer Lynn Barnes's writing and you're not a huge fan of her books, then I wouldn't bother picking this up because the writing style is very similar to how she writes in The Naturals and Inheritance Games and all of that. Overall, I had a really good time reading this. I feel like Jennifer Lynn Barnes is my go-to author when I need a palate cleanser or I need a mystery novel that I know is going to keep me engaged and keep me hooked, and just something that's really fast paced, and one that, even though it's fast paced, I'm still engaged with the characters and the story that goes on, and I still like feel for the characters, and it still leaves like an impact on like to me, if that makes sense. So yeah, I rated this a 4.25 stars. I thought the characters, the relationships in this book were really well done, that I literally want more story with the characters, and I would read a series that follows these characters again. So if Jennifer Lynn Barnes ever decides to turn this into a series, I will be sad. I know she is currently writing like the seventh or novel in like the Inheritance game series right now, which I will be sad for, but I hope that she does revisit this book as well as like the Fixer series. I love the Fixer series. I know those are getting a revamp. They're republishing them with like new titles and all that. The story's the same, but it's just like new covers and new titles. If she ever decides to revisit that duology as well, I will be here for it. I had a really good time reading. This is the third book and last book I'm reading for my all blue book video, I guess that's how we're calling it. I guess that's what we're calling it, because for this video, I literally only read blue books and I picked up more blue books, so I'm wondering if I should like make a part 2 or if I should find like a different creative thing as well, because one thing about me as well is that my physical TBRs are usually pretty small, just because I'm trying to be more cautious of the space I have in my home. But anyways, more book vlogs are going to be coming soon, but thank you so much for watching this video, and let me know if you've read any of the books that I've read in this video, or if you as well are also drawn to blue colored books. For some reason, I am. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one.